Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be looking at the holiday launches from last year and see how I feel about them now, a year later. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Alright, so as I have been reviewing a ton of new makeup recently, it occurred to me that we should definitely look back on last year's holiday releases because I did review a lot of those as well. So the first one on top of my pile is the Natasha Denona Mini Metropolis. So this was also released with a tiny little blending brush as well. And this is a cute little kit. I do think this is a really pretty holiday palette for sure. I think if you already have the full-size Metropolis, this was completely redundant, which I do. So should I pick this up? No, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad I have it because it's easy for reference. I kind of collect her minis in general, I'll be honest. I just love them. But if I'm just looking for something simple, I could definitely go for this. So I do love this. It's probably not my favorite of last year's holiday releases, but I do think this is beautiful and I do like it. Okay, this next product, I don't know if it was necessarily part of her holiday collection, but it was definitely one that she released maybe a week before Christmas, so I decided to count it in, and this is the Natasha Denona Mini Biba. So if you have followed my channel this year, you know this is a favorite of mine. I love this one so much. This one, this middle shade in particular, is my favorite shimmer shade of all time. I have not been able to top it. When I did first review this one, I did comment that a lot of the mattes sort of look similar, and I stand by that. These two really do look similar on the eyes. This one, I don't know if it was really necessary. This is a cream to powder, but love this palette. Yeah, a lot of the shades look similar, but it doesn't seem to affect how I feel about it. I absolutely love it. This is definitely one of my all-time favorite palettes she has ever released. I love this one. There's just something about the shades and the tone that is so flattering on my skin tone in particular. I just think it's so pretty, and that, again, that shimmer. I need her to release that in maybe a single or something because it is beautiful. Okay, the next product is actually a face trio, and this is from Pat McGrath, and this is the Divine Blush and Glow Trio in Galactic Sun. I do love this so much. I am a big fan of the Pat McGrath blush formula in general, and I do think when she releases these little trios or palettes in general, it's a great way to add some of her shades to your collection. I did not pick up this year's holiday palette because one of them had this shade and one of them had this shade, and because I already have both, it just made no sense. But I do love this. I love her blush formula. Her highlighter formula is pretty too, but it is definitely a very shiny highlight, so it's not one that I go for a ton. But these are so beautiful, and I've been talking about this a lot lately because I'm noticing sort of a shift in my blush preferences. I've always been somebody who really liked a bright pink blush or just a pink blush in general, and all of a sudden I'm gravitating toward these more peachy, burnt oranges, that kind of thing. So I found that really interesting because I was fully expecting to be in love with Divine Rose. I think they're both really beautiful shades, but there is something about Desert Orchid, and I still reach for this one all the time. So this one was a really good purchase for me last year. The next palette that was a holiday release is the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. So she released this one in a light and a deep, and I picked up the light. I think this is gorgeous, and I do still love this one. I have reached into the shadows a lot. This matte shade right here is such a perfect transition for me, so I have reached into that one quite a lot. I haven't used the highlighter a ton because it is very shiny and a little bit glittery. The cream blush, I love the tone of it, but it is a little bit more on the dry side, so I haven't used it as much. But this is one that I am really glad I picked up. I really do enjoy this one. I love that it's a full face sort of situation, and I only really need to grab for a bronzer when I use this, so I do really love this one. This next product is actually from Lorac, and this is their Fairy Tale Forest eyeshadow palette. So I did review this one last year as well. I do try to always review the Lorac eyeshadow palettes because I know they still have a bit of a fan base, even though I don't hear about them very much here on YouTube anymore. They do typically release one palette every holiday and maybe some minis, but they do tend to release one. And I think this is such a beautiful palette. The formula is amazing. It really is. It's not the most exciting color story, but it really is a beautiful palette. Honestly though, I have not reached for it nearly as often as I should. So now that I've actually pulled it out and looked at it again, I'm gonna keep it out and keep playing with it because I do think it's really, really beautiful. It's just one of those that just kind of fell off my radar, got put into a drawer and sort of left there, but it is a really beautiful palette. The one Lorac palette that really keeps calling to me is the Vintage Glamour that was released in 2020. That one has a lot of use out of it. This one, not as much, but I am going to leave it out because I do still think it's really, really beautiful, but I definitely haven't used it as much as I should have. Okay, let's talk about Charlotte Tilbury's holiday releases from last year. I'm still not sure if there's more to come for this year. I kind of hope there is. But let's talk about last year's. So last year she did release 2 quads in this beautiful, beautiful star packaging. So the first one to come out was Celestial Pearl, and it's just this really beautiful, easy to work with color story. Definitely on the lighter side and definitely a very sparkly quad. I think this is gorgeous. I don't necessarily always use them all together though. I often do kind of grab for this to add a little bit of a sparkle to a different shadow look. If I'm just really looking for something really sparkly, I will grab for this instead. Sometimes I do use it all together, but often enough I just want a certain sparkle, and that's okay. I do think this is so beautiful, and this did get a really good review for me last year. I do still think it's really, really pretty. The second quad that followed was Cosmic Pearl, and I really don't love this one. So I actually do sort of like this matte brown a little bit better. I like this shade, but this shade was supposed to be like a purple dream. Seeing this one in photos, it definitely looked purple, and that was really exciting coming from Charlotte Tilbury, but it's really not purple. It's got like a pinky brown blue kind of a shift, and for that reason, I just don't find it very flattering on me personally. It's also a baked formula. So this one just was not my favorite. I think if this shade was replaced with anything else, I think this would be really pretty. And Charlotte also released one of her 12 pan palettes last year as well. These I love, really, really love this one. I love how she organizes them into trios. I love the tone of this one. I love how shiny and sparkly some of the shimmers are. They are a little bit on the dry side. Not all of them, but some of them are on the dry side. But the formula is still amazing. I love this one. I love using this one. I love working with this one. I think I do have a multiple looks one palette with this one here on my channel. I just think it's so beautiful, and I'm really hoping she does come out with another one of these this year, because this is a color story too that it does call to me a little bit for fall, but honestly I can see myself grabbing for this one any time of year, and I certainly did. I do think this one was limited edition and it actually did go away. I really do recommend her 12 pan palettes. I think the formula in these is really, really good. And I'm really hoping that she is planning to release one of these this year, because there's been no sign, but I love them. From Huda Beauty, we have the Rose Quartz palette. So I have definitely raved about this one a ton. I have really, really loved this one. I have absolutely not touched the Love Stone shade, but I have loved this palette. I think it's so pretty. It calls to me a little bit more in the springtime. I really, really love it. I think it's so, so, so beautiful. It's kind of polar opposite of this year's holiday palette, which I didn't actually pick up just because I found it a little too deep for me. However, that's perfect for those that found this one way too light, so that's totally fair. I love this one. I love the pink tones. I love the purple tones. I love these. Really, I can't help myself. What is that shift? It's so, so, so pretty. I love this palette, so this is one that I have no regrets about picking up. Okay, and from ABH we had the Primrose palette. So this one is interesting because this was kind of like, I guess, their comeback palette. They really didn't release anything in 2020, I don't think. And then last year they came out with this, and then this year there's been 2 palettes. So this is the one that kind of started their comeback in this type of format with no brush but larger pans, which I think is really pretty. The packaging to this is gorgeous. I think that's beautiful, and I love the rose gold around the outside. I think that's beautiful. I think they really nailed the packaging. What I don't like is the two blushes that were included. They just, I don't know. They honestly didn't really do anything for me personally, so I don't love that. I have formulas I like a lot better, so I do feel like these were completely unnecessary. The palette itself is really, really beautiful. They do have a lot of kick up, which the brand is known for, but they do have a lot of kick up, and the shimmers are definitely, there's a lot of fallout. So this is a palette that if you're going to use it, you want to do your eyes first. However, I do think this is a beautiful palette. I still think it's really pretty. It's not my very favorite of all of their palettes, but I do still think it's gorgeous. And the last holiday palette from last year was the Pat McGrath Celestial Odyssey. I loved this one. I also have multiple looks with this one up on my channel, and I do think this is beautiful. I love the packaging. I loved the shade range. I haven't touched this sparkly black, but a lot of the others I've really, really enjoyed. The one thing I don't love about this palette in particular is the lack of mattes. There is only 4 mattes. There's 2 browns, 2 pinks. I just find that really limiting for me personally, so I didn't love that. However, I really did love the color story. If I'm being honest, I think I might like this year's more. I'm still working on my thoughts, but I did think this was a really, really beautiful palette. And that is it. That is looking back on last year's holiday releases. So overall, I feel like there was a lot of really good ones. I would say the weakest ones would probably be the Lorac. There's nothing wrong with the palette itself. I just forgot about it. But I will be leaving it out to play with more now. And then the Natasha Denona Metropolis. But otherwise, these are all such great products, and I've really enjoyed them throughout the year. So I can't complain about that. I love all of these. That is it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!